Okay, so coming back to the topic, we were discussing about a long walk to water. In the previous video, we discussed about the chapter 1, the character, what is the basic story, and then in the next video, we discuss the question answers which can be asked exam point of view. Now, today, we will be doing chapter 2. So, let's go back. It is again Southern Sudan 2008. Naya put the container down and sat on the ground. She always tried not to step on the spiky plants that grew along the path, with their horns littered the ground everywhere. She looked at the bottom of her feet. There it was, a big thorn that had broken off right in the middle of her heel. Naya pushed the skin around the thorn, then she picked up another thorn and used it to poke and prod at the first one. She pressed her lips together against the pain. So now we are going back to 2008. So we know in the initial chapter, Naya was going, just jumping and going to collect water. It is a desert region. So here they are saying she was walking on and hopping here and there. You see in the deserts, you see thorns growing down. So the path was covered with the thorns everywhere. She was jumping and prodding, and by mistake she stepped on one. So that broke through the heels, means somewhere behind near the heel, it prodded up. So what she did, she tried to remove that thorn. So how? By pressing the skin around, and with the other thorn she tried to remove it out. That's a normal way. But through this we come to know that she was not a delicate girl living in the desert in the tribal region. She had known how to survive that. Okay. Otherwise we kids when we get a thorn, Arey mummy અહીંયા blood આવ્યું છે. Oh, this is paining. But she was so bold without any tear in her eyes, she tried to remove the thorn. Now we go to the second parallel story. Southern Sudan in 1985. Boom! Salwa turned and looked behind him. A huge black cloud of smoke rose. Flames darted out of its base. Overhead, an aeroplane veered away like a sleek eagle bird. In the smoke and dust, he couldn't see the school building anymore. He tripped and almost fell. No more looking back. It slowed him down. Salwa lowered his head and ran. He ran until he could not run anymore. Then he walked for hours until the sun was nearly gone from the sky. So here somewhere there was some boom's noise. So Salva looked back and he could see smoke coming up from the base, and aeroplane had just gone away. And he could not see school. So possibly he has ran far off, or it is possibly the bombing. We don't know. They have not clearly mentioned it, but it seems that plane went off. So maybe the plane just dropped the bomb and went off. And he was so scared, then he just started running ahead. And when he was tired, he just started walking, but he didn't look back. He ran until he could not run anymore. Then he walked for hours until the sun was nearly gone from the sky. Other peoples were walking too. There were so many of them that they couldn't all be from the school village. They must have come from the whole area. As Salva walked, the same thoughts kept going through his head in rhythm with his steps. Where are we going? Where is my family? When I will see them again? The people stopped walking when it grew dark to see the path. At first, everyone stood around uncertainly, speaking in tense whispers of silence with fear. Then some of the men gathered and talked for a few moments. One of them called out, "Villages, group yourselves by villages. You will find someone you know." Salva wandered round until he heard the words. Lon Arik, the village of Lon Arikia, really flooded through him. That was his village. He hurried towards the sound of the voice. So here you have to remember the village name. That was Lon Arik. Lounarik. Lounarik. Please, this is important. Which village he was from. Relief flooded through him. That was his village. He hurried towards the sound of the voice. A dozen or so people stood in a loose group at the side of the road. Salva scanned their faces. There was no one from his family. He recognized a few people, a woman with a baby, two men, a teenage girl, but no one he could know well. Still, it was comforting to see them. So, from his village, whom he could find a few people, which included a woman with a baby, two men, and a teenage girl. This is important because they can ask you this. They spent the night right there by the road, the men taking shifts to keep watch. The next morning they began walking again. Salva stayed in the midst of the crowd with the other villagers from Lonarik. In the early afternoon, he saw a large group of soldiers up there. Words passed through the crowd. It's rebels. What are rebels? These are the people who fight against the government. Salva passed several rebel soldiers waiting by the side. Each of them had a big gun. Their guns were not pointed at the crowd, but even so, the soldiers seemed furious and watchful. Some of the rebels then joined the back of the line. Now the villagers were surrounded. He had it in his mind, what are they going to do with us? Where's my family? Late in the day, the villagers arrived at the rebel camp. The soldiers ordered them to separate into two groups. Men in one, women and children, and the elderly in other. Teenage boys, it seemed, were considered men, for boys who looked to be only a few years older than Salva were joining men's group. Salva hesitated for a moment. He was only 11. So this is something you should know. He was only 11. But he was son of an important family. He was Salva Mavin Dutt Arik from the village named from his grandfather. His father always told him to act like a man, to follow the example of his older brothers, and in turn set a good example for Kual. Salva took a few steps towards the men. Hey, a soldier approached Salva and raised his gun. Salva froze. Of course, someone keeping a gun on your shoulders, it is not something easy for a child of 11. All he could see the gun's huge barrel, black and gleaming, as it moved towards his face. The end of the barrel touched his chin. Salva felt his knee turn to water. Knees turned to water means he was very scared, as if he couldn't move. He closed his eyes. Then in the mind he thought, if I die now, I will never see my family again. Somehow this thought strengthened him enough to keep him from collapsing in terror. He took a deep breath and opened his eyes. The soldier was holding gun in only one hand. He was not aiming it. He was using it to lift Savla's chin so he could take a better view. Over there, soldiers. He moved the gun and pointed it towards the group of women and children. So now, he was in his mind, two minds. They were separating men and women, elderly and kids. So here, Salva he was thinking, because his parents, or sometimes our parents' advisors can behave like a good, you are now big. So he thought, and he was from a very important family, so he thought you should go towards a big. But the men understood his age, 11. So with a gun, he tried to ask him, where are you going? But seeing initially, Salva felt that it was, scary. So he was scared. But then he realized that he was just trying to shift him to the other group. You are not a man yet. Don't be in such a hurry. He laughed and clapped Salva on the shoulder, and he moved him towards the other side. Next morning, rebels moved on the camp. The village men were forced to carry supplies, guns and motors, shells, radio equipment. So the men were given work of transporting important things like food. Supplies includes food, guns, motors, shells, radio equipment. Okay, so they are whatever they needed for that warlike situation. Salva watched one man protested that he did not want to go with the rebels. A soldier hit him in the face with the butt of a gun. The man fell, bleeding. After that, no one objected. The men shouldered the heavy equipment and left the camp. Everyone else began walking again. They went in the opposite direction from the rebels. For whatever the rebels went, they were sure be fighting because they were taking the war supplies. Salva stayed from the group from Launarik. It was smaller now without men. And except for the infant, Salva was the only child. That evening they found a barn. Barn is, something where, these grasses and all are kept. Where, domestic animals are kept and their fodder and all is kept. In which to spend the night. Salva tossed restlessly in the itchy hay. Where are we going? Where is my family? When I will see them again? It took him a long time. These were the thoughts running. It took him a long time to fall asleep. Even before he was fully awake, Salva could feel that something was wrong. He lay very still with his eyes closed, trying to sense what it might be. Finally, he sat up and opened his eyes. No one else was in the barn. Salva stood so quickly that for a moment he felt dizzy. He rushed to the door and looked out. Nobody, nothing. They had left him. He was all alone. So when he fell asleep, provided the woman and all left, they have not mentioned, but when he felt that uneasiness. Sometimes that subconscious mind. But he was so scared he didn't open his eyes, though it was silent. But after a while, he opened and he found he was all alone. That's it for chapter 2. After a while, I'll be discussing in another video the questions related to chapter 2. Thank you.